Hey there, it's Mike Langford. Welcome to the SoFin Podcast, part of the Finzer Marketing Podcast Network. This week on the show, I'm joined by Shane Walker, one of the co-founders of Qube Money. That's Qube with a Q, U-B-E, followed by Money. Here's the deal. I'm going to ask you to have some earmuffs for the little ones that are in the car or listening on your home speaker system, if they happen to be in the room, just for the next couple of minutes, because I'm going to use a crass introduction, I guess, for Qube Money, which I could almost feel poor Shane, cringing a little bit. He's heard this before, and his partner Ryan Clark also kind of cringing a little bit at this, especially just given they're just like, they are the nicest, most wholesome guys in the way that they project themselves and they project the business. But this is really going to hit home and I think make an impact. So if you want, you can skip a few minutes ahead, but here we go. There are only two things that motivate human beings, and you've got to figure out which one you're marketing to. Now, look, there's variations along the spectrum here, but there are two ends of the spectrum, and this is what motivates people. There is a fear of dying, so people are motivated to try not to die. And then there's the desire to get laid, right? Procreation. So you think of base human instincts. I don't want to die. Survival is important to me. Avoid death. And find a mate, reproduce. Now, these are instinctual things, but when we get down to our lives, particularly our financial lives, those same motivational factors exist, right? People don't want to die. They don't want to go broke. They don't want to be bankrupt. They don't want to be in massive debt and in financial ruin. Some people are motivated by those things to protect what they have. We sell insurance because it's a guarding against death, right? What happens if I die? What happens if I have an accident? I don't want to be completely wiped out. I don't want my family to be in trouble. All those things, right? We want to avoid death. But here's the deal. People want much more to get laid. And many, many more people are motivated to get laid. They're motivated by the cool stuff, to buy the new house, to buy the better car, to go out and have a good time with their friends. They are motivated to try to get the promotion at work, to whatever that is, whatever the getting laid thing is. They're much more motivated by that. And there's more people who are driven by those things. And the reason why you see most marketing is pushing people to use their product or service so they can get laid, so they can feel better about themselves, right? So here's another little interesting thing. People will literally risk death to get laid. You see that with dudes all the time, right? They do all sorts of stupid shit to try to impress the ladies. And sometimes it's crazy stuff that, might actually get them killed. Or we see people do all sorts of stupid shit financially that might actually cause them death, right? They buy a car they can't afford. They buy the house they can't afford. They buy fancy clothes or whatever. They do stupid stuff in the pursuit of getting whatever the metaphorically laid thing is, and they'll risk financial ruin to do so. So my challenge with most financial wellness startups, and I shared this with Shane and with Ryan when they first talked to me about Qube Money, is that oftentimes when I see a financial wellness startup, they're coming at it from we help people avoid death. We help them get their spending under control by showing how much they're spending in a variety of different categories, and therefore they can get smarter about their spending and not go broke. So we see that a lot. Our credit card has this points reward system and they can save extra money and they're going to be better. Or we have financial education. Well, if you only knew about money, you understood how money works, you wouldn't spend so much. That's like saying, hey, if you only understood that eating a whole dozen donuts is not good for you, you wouldn't do it. Like, people know. They know that buying stupid stuff and buying it on credit isn't a good idea. They know these things, right? So the challenge with marketing a financial wellness tool to people just through the not dying lens is that the people who are really, really motivated to not die, that's a driving force in their life, they're already using tools like Mint and Quicken or a spreadsheet or a notebook to keep a ledger of their spending, and they do their weekly or monthly budgeting or whatever. Those people, they're already wired that way. So now what you're trying to do is attract new people to convert them to that system. Right? You're trying to get new people, or maybe peel somebody off of Mint or peel somebody off of Quicken, right? Harder to do. But what Shane and Ryan have done with Qube Money is they're helping people get laid, and in the process get control over their finances. And it sounds ridiculous to say that, but here's the thing. They have taken a age-old system for spending management and brought it into the 21st century. And I don't want to ruin the surprise, but it's something called the cash envelope system, and you'll hear Shane talk about it. And he talks a lot about giving money purpose, making a decision ahead of time. So not looking backwards at your spending, but making a decision before you spend. And what I like a lot about this, and we actually don't talk about this in the episode, is part of the go-to-market strategy for Shane and Ryan for Qube Money is they're going to groups of people, communities of people, whether they be faith-based organizations or other groups of people who are already in these communities in which the value of having a good, solid family and a healthy, vibrant family that is supported by their finances is rewarded by feeling good about themselves. That's where the buzz, the getting laid is my family's doing well. We have a healthier family organization. We're not divorced. Our kids have the opportunities to go to college and so forth. And that's part of what the status symbol is for that community. It's less about the newest truck, the newest house, the whatever. It's more about how healthy your family is. So we didn't talk as much about that in this episode, but when you see how Qube Money works, and check out their website, QubeMoney.com, with a Q, not a C, and you listen to the conversation I have with Shane, I really do think that you're going to be very impressed and bought in, and you'll see what I see in this. Because like I said, most of these types of startups never make it. And it's just because people aren't motivated to just study their finances and make some decisions, as in an ad hoc fashion, right? This is the type of thing that actually has a very high likelihood of succeeding. And as Shane says, changing lives. And you can really hear that, by the way, when Shane and Ryan talk about this. They are like mission driven in a way that really gives me a lot of confidence that they're going to succeed. Okay, super long intro there. We're going to get to it with Shane right now. No more talking from me. Here we go. Let's do it. Well, hey, Shane, I'm so excited to have you on the show. So thank you for joining me.
Mike, thank you. It's an honor to be here with you.
And I got to tell you, I really appreciate you carving out the time, because as you mentioned, when we first fired up the Zoom here, it's a busy day for you. You got the launch is happening. So how's it going?
Crazy, crazy, but great. Yeah. So the first real money will go into Qube Money tomorrow, and testing will begin in a live scenario, a live platform. And honestly, we are so excited. Our whole team is buzzing around getting ready for this. So it's awesome. Really exciting for us. We've been working for months for this day, Mike. So it's cool.
That's so amazing. I'm so excited for you guys. And by extension, a little proud of you guys. I mean, I know what it's like to go through this, and our our conversation started months and months ago. And so to hear that you're hitting the milestone is just such a wonderful thing. Well, before we dive in a little deeper, I wonder if I can get you to give us a bit of the Qube Money elevator pitch. What is Qube Money, and what's it going to do now that it's launching and there's real money in the platform? So fire away. We're on the elevator.
So Qube Money is a fintech that uses the cash envelope methodology to help people spend with purpose. So it's a full banking suite that uses cash envelope methodology and digitizes it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And what's really interesting to me, and I hope people in the audience or listening to this pod can appreciate, is not all fintechs have the same hurdles, right? So anybody can whip up an app and that teaches you how to use money or whatever. But once you introduced actually adding real money in there, having customers deposit money, and you are representing yourself as a banking solution, there's a lot more hurdles. It had, the technology has to be bulletproof. There's a lot of regulatory challenges that and red tape and check boxes and I's and T's that need to be dotted and crossed. So how's that process been for you? Because, we'll dive into it in a little bit about where the aha moment for the product came from, but how have you navigated that process?
Great people.
Yeah.
It's taken us putting the right people around us. And a really big add to the team was Joyce Melman, former COO of Bancorp. And she put together programs with Simple and Vero and Movin and some big names, Mint. And she really understands the compliance and banking side of what we do. And she also has been in the industry for several decades. And so she has that skill set that we don't. We're technology, we're marketing. She has the banking side, the regulation side that is massive. And so, anyways, great people and great partnerships have made that possible. But you're right, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, that's
It's a lot of work.
it's interesting too, because I think I spent a lot of time in the fintech ecosystem, particularly in the startup space,
Mm,
and it's often, or not uncommon, I guess is a better way to phrase it, that you'll see entrepreneurs start to lose a little bit of their enthusiasm as they get into it. And I use this analogy actually last week on the podcast with Ari Palmer, and talking about, like, a lot of people when they come to the startup world, they think about this hockey stick. I'm going to start this thing, and before you know it, we're going to spike and go up like crazy. And the reality is, looks like a real hockey stick, the growth curve
yeah.
for a fintech startup, because you're dealing with money, because of the regulatory challenges. So you get this long, straight, flat shaft before you're ever going to see the legitimate growth kick in.
Oh man,
How long have you guys been at this?
4 years.
4 years. And so to give somebody appreciation for how long this can take, it doesn't always take 4 years, but it's a long process. You don't walk into a banking regulator's office and say, "Hey, we want to do this new thing," and they look over your application and check, "Okay, have fun. Have at it."
Here's $7 million. Take it and see what you can do with it.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
no,
work that.
it's not like that at all. Yeah, so I guess kind of going back, originally Ryan and I, we became really good friends back in college. We
Yeah.
actually sold pest control door to door. I owned a
Oh, you
door-to-door pest
really?
control sales company. Yeah, and he was one of my best trainers, and we just kind of really hit it off, had a lot of fun. And anyone who's sold pest control or anything door to door, it's monotonous, hard. Like you really learn who somebody is when they
Hmm.
get rejected door after door after door, day after day after day, to have those 1 or 2 to 10 successes in a day. And I just really learned to appreciate Ryan's resiliency and his positive mentality and his love for people. Like he truly cared about individuals and had a way of just diffusing contention and things like this. So we really became great friends. Pest control wasn't our lifelong dream, killing bugs. And so I actually went into the financial health, financial coaching space, and I was working with some concepts that I was really excited about that have really developed, and we've utilized those in Qube Money. But I invited Ryan to come out, and we never actually worked together, but we talked a lot over the years just about how to help people truly achieve health, financial health. And I'll tell you, Mike, it's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard in today's world to get money to behave. And it was, I guess, disheartening to watch families, couples, individuals fall back in the same bad habits over and over and over, really because our financial kind of environment, that's just the easiest thing to do. It's kind of like eating healthy. It's easiest not to eat healthy. It's easiest to be, our society says, this, have these potato chips, go out in this fast food restaurant because it's fast and easy. But in the end, it causes a lot of heartache and struggle, right?
Yeah.
Well, financially, it's very similar. And so we watch that happen over and over. That's really what inspired us to begin Qube Money. So,
Yeah. So let's dive into that a little more. I have my little notes here, like, what's your aha moment? Because I love asking that question.
yeah.
At some point in time, you're sitting there, you're working on things, as you mentioned, there's some inspiration in terms of what you're seeing in the marketplace. And then you have something dawn on you like, oh, yeah, this needs to exist and we need to make this thing happen. So you had shared one story with me about finding it a little disheartening that some family members wouldn't qualify to be clients of your traditional financial advisory firm. How did that inspire Qube Money more directly? What was that aha moment like for you guys?
Yeah. So the fact of the matter is in order to achieve financial health, the fundamental foundation is spending.
Mm,
If you can't control spending, nothing else happens successfully long term. And it's like a yo-yo financially, right? And with the modern payment technologies that exist today, controlling spending is tough. I
mm,
mean, when you can simply show your phone and go poop and it's, you know what I mean?
mhm.
It makes it so easy to spend and it's just like one tap done, spend, spend, spend. And so that spending is really where what inspired us to do this. I guess the family that you're talking about been making $250,000 for over a decade and literally nothing to show for it. They had a
Wow.
beautiful home, awesome toys, box office tickets to the games, and from the outside, they just living life and living it big, but living paycheck to paycheck and debt. And they were like, came to us, their marriage was struggling, saying, the next 10 years cannot be like the past 10 years. And they were a couple that liked technology, and we've studied tons of platforms for budgeting. And, as you get through them, in the end, they're glorified spreadsheets that are just track what you've done. But if you drove your car looking in the rear view mirror, it's a wreck.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all there is to it. And so a budgeting platform has to be looking through the windshield. It's got to be telling you where you're going, not what you've done. It's too late. The decision to spend has already been made. And the only system that we've seen that works to do that is cash envelopes, because you make a decision before you spend of what the purpose of that money is. And then each time before you spend, you actually look at your budget and there's intentional decision on, okay, is this aligning with what I want? Right. And then you're spending money directly from your budget. So there's a direct correlation between money I have and what I'm spending. You see the limits and the potential of your money in real time. Well, this couple was they didn't want that. They didn't want to follow the discipline, the intense discipline that required. So we put them on a platform that was one of the best of the day. That gave some really good alerts and so forth when you're spending. Hey, you spent this much last time at this store. Try to spend less and things like that. Well, within 3 months, they had fallen off the system. It was so easy to go around it because your budget and your bank weren't the same. And within a year, they were divorced. And this was really hard on Ryan because his parents were divorced when he was in high school, largely because of finance. And it was like, it hit him hardcore. And he's like, there has got to be a better way. None of this stuff works.
Mm.
And he sat down with a friend of ours and was like, is there any way we can digitize cash envelopes? He was a payment processor developer. And that was the beginning. It was like a 2-hour meeting where they were just like really saying, is this possible to be able to make money available in real time from an intentional envelope and then be able to spend it? You know what I mean? And so forth.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning. And that was 4 years ago. And we put together a little MVP and tested it, and it scaled like crazy to all over 1,000 people in like a month. But the technology wasn't there. I mean, the processing technology, the banking technology, and so that the technology didn't work, and it fell to pieces. And we worked hard to put it back together. But that was the beginning, and we started a patent at that time. And honestly, it took us almost 4 years to get the patent in
My
place.
goodness.
We just put that in place. So crazy road, of a small MVP, and then we did a larger launch with what we thought was a great partner that kind of put all of the partnerships together for us. But the reliability and the speed still couldn't give us real-time information and move the money like we needed to. So that's what's brought us to Qube Money today.
Wow. So let's take a small step back for the listener who is unaware of the cash envelope budgeting
Yeah.
methodology? Because I was relatively familiar with it, my early days as a kid, but talk a little bit more about that for those who may not be familiar with that concept. And then how did it translate into a technology solution that reflects that in the digital world?
Yeah, sure. Well, and to follow cash envelopes, you have to be kind of a little out there. There's a certain culture like us. We're a bunch of money freaks, but no. So how cash envelopes works is it's really the same method that probably our grandparents and great grandparents used, where they got their check in the form of actually cash, and they would put some of that cash away for savings for a rainy day, right? And then they would budget that money according to their needs, their daily needs. So they might have an envelope that says groceries on it, and they would put in a certain amount of cash for the month to fill that need, and fun and going out to eat and fuel and all these different categories, or yeah, budget categories that we have needs for money. And then once you put it in those places, then you carry those envelopes around with you through the month. And as you need to spend, you actually look at what you have before you spend, and then you give the money. And so there's a direct gone when you spend it,
Mhm.
and you know how much you have left, right? And it is very effective at helping people stick to a budget, because they can see the reality of, okay, here's what I have, here's my budget, here's what I'm spending, and it creates that correlation. So it's these people that you're behind them in the line, and they pull out this like envelope system, and they're counting money and change, and you're waiting for them. But that's the methodology of cash envelopes. So that requires Navy SEAL discipline. And we have clients that utilize that to get out of debt. But once they're out of debt, they're like, man, that is so tough. I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, that takes way too much time, because you can imagine through the month, if you're working as a couple, you have to count that, ledger that, figure out. And each month, there's always this constant upkeep of that system, but it changes behavior. So to make that digital, you have to have a modern payment technology, a debit card, mobile wallet, or whatever that gives you the ability to spend. But then you have to have digital envelopes that you can open and close in real time and make access to that money, and then take away that access. So how Qube Money works is when money comes into your banking system, it comes into what we call as the Qube Cloud, which is simply money without purpose yet. You haven't given that money a job yet. And so it sits in this, so as to speak, virtual account, and then you allocate those funds into a position of purpose. And you create cubes, we call them cubes, which are digital envelopes, and you categorize them just like you would an envelope: groceries, fuel, going out to eat, date night, health insurance, life insurance, all those different needs that you have for money. And then once you've allocated into a position of purpose, you can use bill pay and your Qube card, which is a smart debit card, to spend that money. And before you spend the money, you actually look at your app and you make that money available by tapping the balance. And within 1 second, that money is now available to spend on that card. And then once you spend, whatever's left over after the purchase goes back to the Qube, closes, the card returns to a default zero balance. So now if someone steals your card, they get no money because there's no money open and available on that, right? And then that transaction is ledgered and put into some beautiful reports, so you know you're spending. So you can still look in the rearview mirror, but the whole purpose is to be looking forward and to be guiding your choices. And on average, Mike, households spend $440 less per month by using this system. And when you look at the struggle people have with an unexpected $400 expense, it's truly life changing. And we have people that have used our previous systems save upwards of $2,000 a month just by being intentional about their spending.
You know, to me, that's one of the most significant things about Qube Money. When you told me about this, is that this is why it works. Right now, I understand there's probably a listener or two who's like, that seems like a little bit of friction on my spending. I'm not sure if I want that kind of friction, but it's the friction that makes it work, right? Because as you and I have talked about, I've seen lots of financial wellness startups and app ideas. And you mentioned it, like most of them are looking at how you have spent your money and analyzing your spending, or encouraging you to think about budgeting, or choosing a different credit card with a lower rate or whatever that is. But in this case, what's really happening here is you're telling somebody, okay, you have your money and you have access to it, but before you get it, make a decision on how you plan to spend it. Now, you can change over time. You can take money out of a bucket or cube and move it to somewhere else, out of an
Right.
envelope,
You
and move it
can.
to someplace, right?
Yeah.
But let's start thinking about this type of spending before you go out and do it. And to me, that really does make a huge amount of difference. Because if, as you say, with intention on your spending, if you have that type of intention and a thought process for it, you'll get better over time, and the discipline will become a little easier. It's kind of like, I think Ryan
Yeah.
told me the analogy of the refrigerator, right? Like if your refrigerator is just filled with a bunch of junk, well, you go to the refrigerator, it's easy to just grab the junk. But if you fill your refrigerator with good stuff to eat when you go there, it's easier to go, all right, I'll eat the good stuff,
If you force me to, right?
I
Yeah, it's so true. And Mike, we've spent a lot of time and studied human behavior thoroughly to make this as easy as possible, but create the I guess the friction enough to change behavior. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's a balance between it needs to be so easy that people will do it, but there needs to be enough friction to change behavior and spend with intention and purpose. And so some of the things that we've done is a lot of people, the budgeting process it's a lot of friction. It's hard to figure out what we spent it on, and creating all of those budget cubes, taking the envelopes, writing the names on the envelopes, and so forth. And so one of the things is when you onboarded to Qube Money, there'll be actually cubes with names and simply where do you spend money? And you tap the 10, 20, 30, whatever you spend, and immediately creates the cubes for you. So no more typing those in, and it pre-programs them to, if it's a bill cube, a savings cube for the majority of people, spending cube, and makes that process really easy so people will actually do it. We also have the technology through a partner Plaid where you can go back in your account, and we will be able to tell you on average how much you spent on fuel in the last 12 months, how much on average you spent on groceries. And so that you can pre-create your budget amounts so that it makes that easy. And then also, like when I go to the store to spend and I have Qube Money, it's literally a tap on open my phone with a retina, tap on the app, and and push of the button. And so it's very easy. It's all
Mhm.
within my hand. And it happens so quick that it's not very much friction. But it still gets me to look at how much money I have, what I'm spending. Is this what I should be doing? Does this align with my goals, my dreams, my purpose? And yes, great, spend. And then it ledgers it so that I know all of my information very quickly, right? And it keeps my money safe. So all of those things we've done to make it so it's as easy as possible, but the friction is where it needs to be to, one, make a decision, where am I going to allocate my money? And two, when I go to spend, do I have the money?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it
I
there? And
love
so
that.
that's really important. Let me share one other thing that I think is cool. Also, we have hundreds of apps. An app that gives us high yield savings, an app that pays us 2 days early, an app that allows us to do roundup investing, an app that helps us control our subscription spending, an app that does this. And so another thing that Qube Money is doing, and you'll watch happen over the next 6 months, is it will be a one full banking suite that allows you to get payday 2 days early. It allows you to do roundup, not only for investing, but also for saving for a trip or paying off debt or, giving for charity. It'll allow you to do peer-to-peer transfers like a Venmo style peer-to-peer transfer all within your budget. It'll allow you to set up automated bill pay and all of those things from one location. So you get high yield, you get the peer-to-peer transfers, you get the roundup investing, you get you know what I mean? All those things, again, to make it easy.
You know, one thing that's not an insignificant thing that you just mentioned is the fact that it's on your phone. some of the financial wellness apps that we all know, we Quicken and
Yeah,
Mint
yeah,
and so forth, many of them originated on the computer. And so that itself was a level of friction. You had to be dedicated to sit down at the computer, whether it's once a month, once a week, however frequently you do it, and pull it up and link it to your bank account and spend some time in there. And then they started doing some email stuff here and there as well. But the fact that this thing is in your hand and it's a conduit to spending, not just a reviewing of what's happening in your financial life, is really, really powerful. And the world now, as I talked about with Eric Smith there from App Brilliance a couple episodes ago, the world there is really converging to help mobile, right? And mobile
yeah,
banking and mobile payment solutions. Let's
absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit more about you and Ryan and your journey here, because I think it's very inspiring. How did you make the leap from a couple of financial advisors to fintech entrepreneurs? I mean, were you guys, you had an entrepreneurial drive. You can just tell you're talking about going door to door selling pest control. So that takes a special kind of person to have that kind of drive and that kind of resiliency to do something like that. But had you ever developed a tech product before this?
No, we're crazy.
Either one of you. So
We're crazy.
are either one of you
No,
coders or something? Like, were you coding it before?
no. We had a dream to free people from the tyranny of money, Mike, and then we surrounded ourselves with people that knew what they were doing.
Wow, that's
And
really
we
interesting.
tried and failed and tried and failed until we turned the heads of some of the best processing firms, and then they would connect us with someone else, and we'd follow that until we'd run into a dead end, and then we'd try something different. I think that's why it's taken us 4 years, but today it is phenomenal. I mean, Hippo Labs, the development team that did a lot of the development on Robinhood, and
Hmm.
a dozen other world-class apps. That's our development team.
Hmm.
We have a phenomenal internal senior developer that is very well qualified. And then Joyce Melman is our compliance officer, former COO of Bancorp.
Hmm.
And all these things have just over time come together. And I think it's really what's inspired us is our users. Like they won't leave us alone. Even right now, they're like, "When is this coming out?" I can't. I feel like yeah. Anyways, they're like feel like that they have the tool, but they can't use it, and they just want it so badly. And so it's been amazing to have such a phenomenal community of users that believe so much in what we're doing. They won't let us quit. They won't let us fail.
That's
It's really been amazing.
that's great. Okay, let's take a very quick break here. I want to encourage you to make sure you swing by the FinServe Marketing Podcast Network. Check out the latest episode of the Modern Financial Advisor podcast by Truelytics. There this week, I'm rolling solo on that podcast, and we're going to be talking about the importance of a target market for RIAs, registered investment advisors, and smaller broker dealers. Very often, we talk a lot about the importance of having a target market for individual financial advisors. And in fact, on the last episode of the Modern Financial Advisor, we talked about that with my guest, Dan Caprill. We're going to be talking about this from the perspective of the firm level. And it's really important because most firms aren't thinking about having a target market for who their clients are going to be, but also the types of advisors they're going to attract to the business as well. So really, really important stuff. I think you're going to get a lot out of that one. Also, swing by the Advisor Financing Forum by Skyview Partners. This week, I have John Moranti, the chief economist, on with me once again, and we are talking about how the changes in the unemployment numbers may affect financial advisors. Because we see all this economic data that jobs numbers are not particularly good. At the time that John and I recorded the episode, there was a resurgence of new jobs coming back into the market because of people returning off of layoffs as restaurants and so forth opened up. But as John lays out, there's a lot of ripple effects that are going to affect financial advisors through their clients and through other things in the market. So you're going to want to check that one out also. All right. Now, let's get back to our conversation with Shane. So you've got users or MVP users. You mentioned 1,000 relatively quickly. Walk me through that MVP process because I think, you know, it's one thing to have an idea. Many people will come up to me at a conference or whatever and say, "Oh, Mike, I've got this idea for an app," or I'm, thinking about it or whatever. And it even can be one of those ones that you start to feel in your soul, as you have. You guys are like, "Hey, something needs to be done here." But to have people start accepting it and using it, and as you say, be pulling from a demand perspective because they're aware that it's coming. How did you take it from concept to something that's becoming a real world MVP? What was that process like for you guys?
Well, it was bootstrapping money together, and this friend that was a developer in the payment processing space, sacrificing, and really spending nights and weekends to put that platform together so people could start using, and getting a processor that was willing to give us a try, and a bank that was willing to give us a try, and put that together. Yeah, so that's really how we did it. And the fact is the cash envelope people are truly a very, I don't know, they're a strong-willed group of people. To be that disciplined, to
Mm,
use just cash in a cashless world is strong, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of like the group of climbers, that rock climb. I mean, that's a tight niche, powerful group of people. And you can, I guess, go into bikers and so forth. Well, that community really has. There's millions of people out there that have been trained in cash envelopes and believe in that methodology and want a modern version that they can use from their phone.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, so that group has really been a huge support team for us.
that's
And
wonderful. That's
yeah,
wonderful. So, one of the things that I ask of everybody who presents at SoFine, and Ryan did present earlier this year, and I ask of everybody who attends the event is for them to have an ask of the audience and have an ask of each other, right? You should come because you want something. And that's not being greedy. That's not being selfish. That's, hey, I'm trying to get something out of this. I'm trying to accomplish a goal. I assume you are as well if I'm meeting somebody else. So when you're on stage or when you're on a podcast, ask something of the audience. And I think it's very much okay to be overt about it. So, what is an ask you may have of a listener who's tuning in to the SoFi podcast?
absolutely. So, in our world today, something that threatens our freedom more than anything else is personal finance. It is the debt load that our society carries on a personal basis. And so, my ask of everyone is to do your research and understand really what's happening to our society financially, and make it a mission, just like you do with your health, hopefully, but to create financial health and raise a generation that understands that money is real. The consequences of money are real. Although they can't see it move from bank to bank and from merchant to merchant, the consequences of what it does to society are massively real. And when you choose to go into debt, that is a partnership that you'll always have with you 24/7. No, never goes to sleep, never goes on a vacation, never takes a break. That interest is always there, right? And to be able to free yourself from that constant nag in your mind, it comes down to spending.
Yeah.
It comes down to spending and making wise choices with spending. And I believe that we can partner together and absolutely transform the future of our society by getting spending under control. And that simply is exactly what cash envelopes teaches. Decide what you're going to do with your money. And before you spend, look at what you've decided and then spend from what you've decided from your budget directly. And that process allows you to change behavior and make better decisions. And none of us are perfect. We're all going to have struggles. We're going to go up and down, but in time, by being making a decision before and having that awareness, we'll become good at this and we'll free ourselves from the number one cause of stress in America, and that's personal finance.
That's so true, though. If you think about like outside of health, obviously,
Yeah.
one of the things that's going to cause you the most sleepless nights is if you're worried about money in any way, shape, or form. Right? It just is.
Yeah.
Right? Whether you're on a business side worrying about sales or a client and whether that client's going to stay or whatever that is, or
Yeah.
on the personal finance side. So I think you're 100% right. I think that's a great ask. So you hear that? If you are out there, consider not only using Qube Money, but also kind of spread the word that, financial education is important. Taking finances seriously is important. Getting a hold of your spending, because I agree with you. It's interesting. I was just having this conversation with somebody who heads up practice management for a large broker dealer, right? So, and for those of you who don't know, broker dealers have large populations of financial advisors, and they are independent financial advisors who are attached to a broker dealer with their license. And this gentleman was saying many of our advisors are particularly concerned during this COVID-19 pandemic. And the reason why they're concerned is an interesting one. It's affecting their wallets because many of these people earn $400,000 a year, but they live a $500,000 a year lifestyle. And if you're making $400,000 a year, you are in the 1%. You are the top, of all Americans, which makes you in the top of the entire world of earners. But as you said earlier in this pod, it's a spending problem because people who make $250 a year, $400 a year, $500,000 a year, they spend like that's never going to end. I mean, how many times have we seen famous people like Nicolas Cage or a famous athlete or whatever just spend themselves into oblivion, and then they start making crappy movies, or they end up playing, baseball overseas, like well into their 40s when they should be just relaxing.
Oh, man.
Stuff, right?
It
It
is
happens.
way too common. It is way too common.
Well, and you actually changed. I still feel like more attention needs to be paid to earning more, because I think for a lot of people, they are under earning, right?
Yeah, no question.
However, you and Ryan really got me thinking that you're right. It is a spending problem for more people than we'd like to admit. If they get their spending under control, they probably have a much better financial life. So as we get ready to close it out here, what's the way for somebody to get started with Qube Money? I mean, you're flipping the switch and going live. If I'm listening to this, how do I get access to the app, and what's the process for getting started?
Very simple. Go to QubeMoney.com, and at this point, you want to get early access. And the alpha stage is going to run for a couple of months, and then we'll open up to beta. And we have a bunch of lifetime users that are like so antsy to get on this. I see them coming on, in the late summer, early fall. But then we'll start allowing an early access people. And I'm telling you, you want to be a part of that group. And go to QubeMoney.com, gain early access, and so that you can be one of those first to begin this revolution, a spending revolution. And I'll tell you one thing, Mike, is within the journey of Qube Money, we will have a free course to spread through the schools and colleges across this nation. This will be our way to give back, to help people learn how to make money behave at a young age. And one of the cool things about Qube Money is it's not only for individuals and couples. We have Qube for Family, which allows you to truly mentor children and give them access to money, help them how to budget through the cash envelope methodology, and spend and save and do all those things. And you can even give, as a parent, your child access to the family budget, to a portion of it, so that they can buy things at the store and see how all that works as a family because of the parent permissions that we've built into the app. Okay.
That's fantastic.
And I wanted to say something. I grew up in a family. This is crazy. You're gonna think I'm crazy. I'm one of 12 children. Okay.
Oh, wow.
My mom and dad. Yeah, I'm the ninth of 12 children. My dad was a teacher.
Do your parents know your name?
Yeah,
They
very
recognize you?
well. Anyways, and so my dad was a teacher, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad made between 24 and $45,000 my entire growing up life. Until I was about in high school, he started a painting company and it started to change. But you know that we didn't have to use one government program because the spending was in check. We did go glean the potato fields here in Idaho. We did, work on the farm, and I changed sprinklers and gave my money to my mom and dad in junior high and high school to make so that everything would work. But it is a spending problem. You can survive, and we never missed a meal. We didn't have a roof over our heads. We were able to participate in the athletics that we wanted to through our school, and we all got higher education through scholarships, and all of us graduated without debt from college, all 12 of us. And so it's not a earnings problem, in my opinion. It really is a spending. Now, earning more money definitely helps, but it is a spending problem. And you can do amazing things as long as you give every dollar a job and you have intention behind what you're doing and you make choices based on that intention. It's incredible. I've watched it in my own life. Okay, so
That's great. I love it. I love it. So I think we can't stop on a better note than that. It's very inspirational. I am really looking forward to seeing Qube Money go live and seeing your growth, because I've enjoyed meeting you and Ryan and talking about this over the last several months. And I just expect you guys to be here in Austin next March, showing off like the growth rate of it and the impact you're having.
oh man, Mike, and I want to just tell you, thank you for having us on here. Thank you for being a support network for us. It was an honor for us to come to SoFi and to be able to be part of presenting to that, even in COVID-19, right?
Yeah, yeah. It
Remember
was
that?
right as it
It
was
was
getting
just
started. Yeah.
right at the beginning.
Yeah.
We didn't know what was happening, but we appreciate what you're doing and your inspiration to the fintech world, because there's a movement happening in the fintech world that is going to change the way money exchanges hands and everything that has to do with money in the future. And we appreciate what you're doing in this space. So
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Oh, great,
yeah,
Jay. Well, thank you for joining us.
thank you.
Thanks, buddy. All right. Huge thanks to Shane Walker for joining me. I really love this conversation. As you could tell, I'm just a huge fan of Shane and Ryan and the Qube Money team and what they're trying to accomplish. I really do recognize how challenging it is to do it. As you heard Shane say, 4 years to do this. So if you're a fintech entrepreneur and your startup's just getting off the ground, recognize, yes, it's going to take some time. You're going to have to raise a lot more money than you thought. It's going to have a longer runway than you thought. But the mission is worth it, right? When you hear the passion in Shane's voice, when you really start to see the vision, when they're getting the early indicators that their first user group is just in love with the product and can't wait to get their hands on it and be out in the marketplace using it, you're on the right track there. So I think they've really done it the right way. I'm super excited to see them succeed. Okay. As always, make sure you like and subscribe to the show. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, you name it. If you have questions or suggestions for guests on the show, or if you'd like to be on the show, I'd love to hear from you. Swing by finsermarketing.com, click on podcast there. You can, say I'd like to be on the show. Or if you have a startup or a fintech firm or financial firm and you'd like to be part of the FinServ Marketing Podcast Network, let us know. We'd love to discuss helping you produce your show and having you participate in the network to take advantage of the growing community that we're going to be building here. Okay. Until next time, make sure you stay safe and be kind to one another. Okay. We all need it right now. All right. See you next time. Bye.